What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am bringing you the test hand combo video for the Dark Magician profile that I showed you guys the other day. So this will highlight the particular playstyle of this deck and of course the generic combos that most of the Dark Magician decks will be able to make. If you like this video and you want to see either a pure or a ritual version, make sure you smash that like button. If you get it above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, I will bring that to you. Stay tuned to the channel as we do bring you updates for, of course, DDDs and Blue Eyes, as well as all the other decks that got new support from Battles of Chaos. With all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's take you through the test hand combo video for Dark Magician. So, as you know, Dark Magician is my favourite deck. Absolutely love it. So when we get this type of level of support, it's always going to be great. Now, obviously, my particular build is not always something that everyone agrees with, but it does kind of integrate a couple of techs, and I ideally like to kind of provide my reasoning behind selecting those specific cards so that you guys can kind of understand, okay, yeah, he's got a point of where he's coming from. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference and deck building. So, after a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, our opening hand of 5 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's actually not a bad hand in a sense because it really depends on whether we want to go for extenders, whether we want to go for draws, like where do we want to go with this. So we've already got the Eternal Soul and the Dark Magical Circle combo. The only thing that we really need from this point on is ideally going to be the ability to set up Verte, which with a hand like this, a lot of you might be like, well, we know Illusion of Chaos can get us to one form of monster on the board, but how do we get to both? Well, that's actually really, really easy, and I'll show you how you do that now. So you're going to activate the Illusion of Chaos effect, and you're going to add yourself a Magician's Souls. Now, the reason we're going to do this, you do lose a draw later on in the play, but ultimately that really doesn't matter. Now, the only card in our hand that we really don't want is Dark Magician. So we're going to put the Dark Magician back to the top of the deck. We're then going to use Magician's Souls effect. Now, you don't need to declare what you're putting back to the top of the deck because it doesn't actually state that it needs to be a specific card, so keep that in mind. Using Magician's Souls effect, we are going to send from our deck to the graveyard Dark Magician Gale, and that is important because we will get Dark Magician to the grave later on, and getting rid of Dark Magician Gale is kind of, like, you don't really need it right now. So again, after a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, we're obviously going to activate our Soul Servant. Now, using Soul Servant, what we're going to do is we're going to put Magician's Rod to the top of the deck. If you wanted to, you could start playing around with Timaeus, and you could also play around with your Apprentice Illusion, but Rod is probably going to give us the most to kind of play around with further on in this play. Now, this is the argument of arguably wanting to try and play Secrets, because in theory, what you could have done is you could have brought back Dark Magician Gale and then used that, but after a decent shuffle and cut, we're going to normal summon the Rod, and we're going to use Rod's effect to search. Now, off the back of Rod's search, we've already got Circle, we've already got Eternal Soul. So ideally, the spell you kind of want to add, or the only real spell that you could use, is you could go for Salvation, but we've already opened up Eternal Soul, so that's not really going to set anything. That is where Secrets comes into play as well. So the best thing that we can search off of the back of this will be Servant. Now, obviously, Servant is going to be banished because we would have banished that to draw the Rod that we stacked onto the top of the deck. Keeping hold of the Servant, we can either use it as free discard fodder with Magician's Souls right now, or we could then save it and then play it the next turn. So after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, what this is going to let us do is it's going to let us activate the Dark Magical Circle. Now, obviously, the freewheel reveal are going to be completely random. We've already got all of the cards we need, so the only thing we'll get off of the back of this is free discard fodder off of Souls. But what we want to try and reveal off the top of our deck is one of our power play cards. Now, what I mean by a power play card is you ideally want to get to an Nadir Servant, or you want to try and find your way, if you do main deck them, into your stuff like the Gozans or anything like that. So, activating the circle, we're going to reveal a Saravas, a Dark Magician, and a True Name. Now, the True Name is actually going to be really good because it does give us a free extender. Now, off of this, you can add the Dark Magician, which isn't really an issue if you do so anyway, because you only need to keep one in the deck. This is how we're going to get all three of these cards from the top of our deck to our hand. Is kind of what you ideally want to be doing. So, What we're going to do here is you're going to put the true name to the top, you're going to put Saravas just below it. Off the back of this, we'll be able to protect our Verte. So, you're going to use Magician Soul's effect, you're going to send us cost to Soul Servant. This will then mean that at least next turn we'll have the ability, as long as that doesn't get banished, to draw 2 additional cards. By doing that, that's going to let you draw the true name. You're then going to activate the true name, and of course you're going to call Saravas because you already know that it's on the top of the deck. Would you look at that? It's a Saravas. This is then going to get added to your hand. Now, if you don't play Obelisk, then you're not going to get a free extender off the back of this, which sometimes does come up and sometimes doesn't. It is entirely up to you. We're going to resolve it as much as we possibly can, and we are going to get the Obelisk out of the deck. That does get us a brick out of the deck, and keeping in mind if we were able, like if either of these two got Ghost Ogred or we lost a form of play, at least we'd still get the ability to do this anyway. Now, keep in mind that both Obelisk, Obelisk will die during the end phase, so you do need to get rid of it. Off the other side of that as well, if you did play it, is you could go into a Link Kuriboh first, then a Verte Anaconda, which would mean you'd be able to protect your Verte Anaconda from being attacked. So it is entirely up to you on where you'd want to go with that one. You can play an Artemis, but Artemis will need to take up a zone that Verte points to, and ultimately isn't really worth doing. So in this particular scenario, the 2 cards you want to get to the graveyard are going to be these 2 here. Like I said, in my build, the extra deck is actually really, really tight, which is why I don't play a Link Kuriboh, but you can easily do that. This is just going to leave you a free defensive body on the board because of the Obelisk extension. Then, of course, you're going to activate Verte's effect. You're going to be sending your Red Eyes Fusion with your Red Eyes and your Dark Magician. Like you said, ideally you wanted an Nadir rather than a Saravas, but you do have the Saravas to protect this from being targeted should your opponent be saving an Imperm or a Veiler. They probably won't use it by the time you've revealed Saravas and added it to your hand, so you're in a very good position. This is then going to give you your boss monster. If you really, really wanted to, you did have the ability to send Magical Eyes Fusion instead and go for a Dark Magician's, but ultimately it's not really worth it. So what this now allows you to do is you allow it to set the Eternal Soul. They don't know you've got this, and then you've got enough discard fodder in hand. So I'm just going to play it through this particular hand to show you how much extension and how many plays you've got. So right away going into your opponent's turn, as long as you don't get super polyed, which would suck a little bit, and even if you did, you still get to bring back the Dark Magicians, you're still in a good play. So you've got a negate off a Dragoon, whether you want to be sending your Illusion of Chaos, but ideally your first target to discard from your hand will be the Dark Magician, because you've already got the Eternal Soul set up, you're going to keep looping these back as it is. Saravas will protect all of this, so let's say they get rid of this or they Dart Ruler, you've still got this to be protected from being targeted, which is really, really nice. Ultimately, you're going to activate Eternal Soul, you're going to bring back Dark Magician. If they nuke this, you're still going to keep the Dragoon on the board, which is absolutely fine. So you've got this route of play already set up and ready to go. You get the Banish of a Circle and everything else. Then what we do, let's say we discarded the Dark Magician because we negated something. We draw for our turn. We've still got Illusion of Chaos, which is going to get us to Rod as a starter. It can get us to our Souls as a free extender and additional draws if we wanted to. We've also got 2 draws in the graveyard because we've got a Dark Magician Gale and a Dark Magician. So banishing Soul Servant is going to let us draw 2 more cards. We also have the ability of Eternal Soul to bring back another Dark Magician, which will trigger the circle again. So in theory, during our opponent's turn, we've got 2 interruptions, one being a Dragoon, one being a Dark Magical Circle. We've then got 1 non-target protection as well, and can be very, very cool. And then obviously you've got our follow-up plays, whether it be the draw, whether it be the guarantee of Illusion of Chaos, to kind of move from there. And off of the back of that, if Verte survives, you've got the ability to go Selene, and then Selene can lead you straight to Access Code, whether you need it or not. 2 Dark Magicians or 1 Dark Magician plus Dragoon's burn effect should pretty much lead you to game anyway. So in theory, after you've kind of recovered your hand, that was a 2-card combo that got you a Dragoon and a Verte, and that was all off of the back of having no real starters. Like, you still needed Servant and you had Illusion of Chaos, so yeah, that's pretty much the 2 ideal cards that we used to get where we needed to go. And that's what I mean by sometimes it's worth sacrificing that additional draw for the draw that's going to allow you to make that play. Anyway, after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, we'll do another test hand going first. And again, kind of show you the routes of where you want to go. Of course, having the Deer Servant at 3 would have made the combo a little bit more consistent to get you your Dragoon and your Winder. But keep in mind, in March, we get Branded Fusion, which makes that just as easy as anything else. So after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, our second opening hand of 5 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is actually really good. So this is something that I kind of want to show you is just with these two cards here, I've got like a massive combo. So this, if I went this route, I can add any card in my deck that circle reveals. If I don't go that route, I can just pretty much go this route, and this route is going to give me a Magician's Souls. So like this hand is bonkers. Not to mention I've still got an Nadir Servant. And I'll show you the play you make using the Nadir Servant without going into an Ecclesia, which is really, really important. So we'll use the very standard, very basic 2-card combo because Soul Servant can come up a little bit later on. And it will depend on what I reveal off of the back of Dark Magical Circle. So we're going to normal summon the Rod. We're going to go for the Circle. And a lot of people do go for the Magician's Salvation, which is absolutely fine because it does get you to the Eternal Soul and give you free send fodder off of souls. But with the Circle, it gives me the option to add any power card I see off of the True Name. Now, obviously what I mean by that is if I reveal an Illusion of Chaos, I can add that. If I don't reveal anything I actually want to take, that's where Soul Servant would come into play because that will guarantee that I can add a Magician's Soul. So basically doing it this way gives you the maximum opportunity to see what you can get. Now, obviously, I don't really need a power card because I've already got Nadir, so there's not really anything it can reveal that makes me go, whoo, yeah, this is so good. Anyway, activate the Circle, excavate the top 3, Dark Magician, Felidius, and Circle. Now, I'm going to take the Circle. There's no need for it to be in my deck. It does mean that I've got free discard fodder for Magician's Souls. Annoyingly, I don't actually want to take either of these for the pure fact that you need to keep Dark Magician in the deck. So this is where the ability of Soul Servant actually comes to fix this. Now, it can guarantee, I could put like an Eternal Soul to the top or a Salvation to the top to guarantee I add that, but ultimately I don't want that. I do want a Magician's Souls or an Illusion of Chaos. So we're going to activate the Soul Servant. This is then going to put on the top of that Magician's Souls. You could go for an Illusion of Chaos. It will get you the exact same play. The only thing is you'd put Dark Magician back to the top of the deck and kind of go from there. And in theory, I don't even need to summon the Magician's Souls because we're going to have the same play that we did last time, which was basically the Obelisk off the back of the True Name is going to act as the Verte fodder. So we're going to shuffle this out, it doesn't really matter, and then the Souls goes back on top. We're going to activate the True Name, call in, of course, Magician's Souls. Would you look at that? Of course, we're going to be right. That's then going to give us the ability to search ourselves out or special summon out a Obelisk. Now, we can just leave it there, just go Verte and play, or we can try and use Magician's Souls to get us to a bit of a protection. So if you wanted to, Magician's Souls can become a free draw right now. It really depends on where you want to take it and where you want to go. The free draw can lead you into stuff like Magical Eyes Fusion, but what you don't want to draw, which can be very, very damaging, is you don't want to draw Red Eyes Fusion. If you draw the Red Eyes Fusion, it then means that your Magician's Soul wanted to be Dark Magician and nothing else. So that's where you've got to be very, very careful. So on this one, just to make sure that we've got everything out of our deck that we need, and because of the Soul Servant in the graveyard, we're going to be able to repair or basically continue to draw for our hand. So we're going to use that to send Dark Magician Girl. It's going to summon itself. You could summon Dark Magician Girl, it really doesn't matter, but at least with Souls, if you decide that you do want to take more draws later on down the line, you can do. And one of our biggest discards and get rid of for free draw is going to be Dark Magical Circle. Now, you're going to use Obelisk and Rod again, and the reason you keep using those two is Obelisk will destroy itself in the end phase anyway, and Rod can allow you to tribute off a Spellcaster, which ironically is very good for this. So, should you activate a spell or trap during your opponent's turn, maybe a Schism, for example, that we're definitely going to get to, or maybe a Eternal Soul, you're going to be in a very, very good position to keep playing from there. So you've done this play here. There's not really anything more you can do to protect yourself going forward, apart from the random draw one off of Magician's Souls, which is obviously going to be risky, and in theory there's not really much reason to do it. If we did do it, it would give us an Illusion of Chaos, which is obviously a good thing to have, because this can then add us a Timaeus Dragon, this can then add us a lot more, but you're not going to know that for sure without taking the gamble. So it is entirely up to you on if you want to make that gamble or not, depending on your play style. We're then going to activate Verte. Verte, of course, will do the exact same thing that it's done before. It will send you a Red Eyes Fusion, and of course, Dark Magician. And obviously, by doing that, it means you don't draw the Red Eyes Fusion, you don't draw the Red Eyes Dark Dragon, because that would then pretty much end your Dragoon play. So that is another reason why not to use the Soul Draw at that point, but actually use it after this. So if you want to, we can actually regain 3 cards here. And again, before I do any of the drawing, I'm going to make sure that all of the cards I want to be searching and that I want in my hand are out. So we're going to activate the Nadir Servant at this point, and what you're going to want to do is send your El Shaddai Apkalone. You resolve the Nadir Servant, and because App Clone is 2500 attack, it does let you get a free extender in the form of Philidius, but ultimately you are pretty much adding a free discard. The reason you would go for Philidius over anything else is should your opponent clear a board, you can still bring this down as a defensive option, whereas Ecclesia will just stay in your hand and not do very much. Nadir Servant goes to the graveyard, and you would then trigger the ability of your App Clone. That will then give you the ability to add Schism to your hand and then discard a random card. Now, ultimately, again, the Dark Magician in our hand is no use to us right now, so it's a very easy let's get rid of you kind of play. Then, obviously, what we want to do here is you can easily repair your hand or refill your hand just by going, okay, Soul Servant in the graveyard, we've got Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl. Draw 2 cards. We've got everything we need now anyway, so anything that we do draw is just going to be bonus. If we wanted to recycle and draw more cards off of this particular type of hand, the two that I would get rid of would be Circle and Servant. And if we did that, it would replace us with a Souls and an Ecclesia, which are both incredibly fine to keep your plays going for the next turn. It's entirely up to you on whether you want to make that choice or that trade-off or not. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter if you make that trade-off or not. It just means that we won't guarantee our top 3 cards of our next turn. But it does mean that in our graveyard, we do get an ability to draw 2. Then what we're going to do here is obviously set 2 very nice cards. We can't special summon anything more, which is why Ecclesia stays in the hand. And then you're going to pass there. Now again, quite like the previous test down, I'll show you what we've got. So you've got a very nice negate off of the back of Dragoon. You've got a very nice banish off of the back of Eternal Soul. Whether you use that before or after Schism. You activate Schism, banishing the App Cologne, banish the Red Eyes, banish the Dark Magician Go if you want to, but I really wouldn't advise it. You'd banish the Red Eyes, you'd banish the App Cologne, you'd go straight into a nice window. This is then going to lock your opponent down. And not to mention, if they put a Dark Monster on the board, Schism will continue to resolve to negate, to send that, basically. Then you've got your free discard fodder in the hand. If you want to follow up with Ecclesia to a punishment, you can. But I feel that this board will ultimately lead us with a game winning anyway. So you send the Ecclesia to the graveyard. That's your discard off the Dragoon. That goes up to 4k. If your opponent threatens you and you feel that you need to, this can be your one special summon of the turn if you did the Dark Magician before you did the Winder. And then you still got your souls in the hand. So you're still going to then draw for turn. And then you still got the ability of the second Soul Servant in the graveyard to draw 2 additional cards, which will allow you to continue your plays from there. You are locked under 1 special summon while you've got Winder on the board, but quite simply, you've already activated a spell of trap, so if you wanted to, you could sack off your Magician's Souls during your opponent's turn, and that would give you Rod back to the hand. So then you've repaired your hand. Look at that. We've got 5 cards again. This is our board. We've got our normal summon. We've got our special summon, which will still have the Illusion of Chaos in the deck to send. And you've got Eternal Soul to bring back Dark Magician and get to move further forward from that point on as well. Not to mention that just by switching these to attack, activate Eternal Soul will give you game. If you are worried, you can start linking all of these off and make sure that you get rid of the Winder first. Ultimately, you would have to use these 3 cards here to get you into your access code, or you would go for these 2 here because she is a spellcaster to get you into Selene. And in theory, Selene can bring back Winder as well. So you've kind of gone, all right, do my special summon, bring back Winder. Link off that Winder if you want to, or keep the Winder on the board and then link off Philidius with the Selene to go into access code. And that's your pretty much game winner from that point on. So again, as you can see from that, even though it took a bit of our hand, we were still able to repair the hand or replenish the hand through all of the other cool cards we had in our graveyard. It does give us a bit of playability as well through certain hand traps, because ultimately if a Souls draw doesn't resolve, it's not the end of the world. If the idea is that with stuff like Rod and Souls and everything like that, you're going to be baiting out the Imperms and the Veilers. They would need to hold it back for a Verte, and if they do something like that, you should still be able to have the follow-up plays of Nadir Servant or other bits like that. So again, we're going to shuffle these up. We're now going to go second. We're going to show you how you can attempt to break boards, how you can attempt to play through boards. The idea is going second, you pretty much want to get to Dragoon, and then that will ultimately lead you to an OTK play. So after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, our test hand going second this time will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's actually a very interesting hand to have because it's actually a terrible hand to see. Now, obviously, the issue with this is we've opened up 2 100% dead bricks, and we've got no way to get to an Illusion of Chaos to put them back. What we have luckily got is we have got the drones, which I've shown you before is a 1-card Verte. Now, obviously, if we went for that 1-card Verte, we would lose so much advantage because we'd lose the red eyes from the hand, we would lose the fusion from the grave, and we don't have a huge amount to play through. So this isn't the best of hands, but this is still a hand that you can play because we got the drones. And again, if the drones was a Diviner of the Herald, we'd still have a play here. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best hand, but you will get hands like this, which is the risk and reward of running this package. So with this particular hand, I'll do the play. This is obviously going to be uninterrupted, and then we'll reset the hand and I'll do 2 more anyway. But you go Chalice to get rid of the strongest involvement on the board, which may be something like a DPE, or it may be something like a Appaloosa. If that is the biggest threat that they have on their board, and you're able to pretty much use Hornet and do the full combo without getting interrupted, that's going to lead you to Verte, which will lead you to Dragoon, which won't give you game unless they've left some very strong monsters on the board, and then you're going to be able to push through that. You're not going to have much of a follow-up play because you will be blocked behind holding, in theory, these 3 cards in your hand, but you will still have a Dragoon to play through off the back of that as well. But like I said, you do get these particular type of test hands. It is the risk of reward of running the True Name package. Ideally, I would like to see Obelisk a lot less than I would do. But some people keep mentioning to me that those 3 spots would probably end up being like hand traps, or they would end up being more Red Eyes fusions. So again, you'd still be getting the exact same result. But if you're going to go for Red Eyes Fusion Turbo, I would probably say you want to play a bit more back row. And you definitely want to be playing Protection, because an Ash on that can pretty much end your turn. Anyway, another decent shuffle and a good old cut, and we'll basically reset the go in second. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually a really nice hand. So again, a really weird hand, but keep in mind as well, people, Ecclesia's effect to lock you out of the extra deck only happens if you use her effect to search. If you choose not to use her effect to search, you don't actually need to lock yourself out of the extra deck, which is really, really nice considering we've already opened up Punishment. In theory, these 2 cards right here are Verte combo. So we're going to go for a bit more draws, and I want to guarantee what I'm going to draw, so that's where these 2 cards come into play. So before I rely on using Ecclesia as an extender, we're going to use Magician's Souls as the extender first, and we're going to send Dark Magician Gale. Now, by sending Dark Magician Gale, I'm still going to summon the Magician's Souls, because ultimately I don't need to worry about anything right now. I'm going to activate the Salvation. The Salvation is, of course, going to set me the Eternal Soul. Now, if I have the ability of getting Dark Magician on the board, that will then allow me to bring back the Dark Magician Girl, which is actually really, really nice, and a bit of an interesting interaction. So we get to set the Eternal Soul. The Eternal Soul is not really going to do anything for me now, but in a minute, once I've activated Dark Magical Circle, it will basically give me the answer on whether or not I feel I can push for game, or if I feel that I need it to provide me that disruption. So after a very decent shuffle, we're going to activate the Circle. The Circle will guarantee the top 3 cards of our deck, and whether or not it's worth using Souls to draw. Now, ultimately, I don't think it's worth using 2 cards to draw, but I will add the Circle because it deck thins for me, and I'm going to put Diviner of the Herald to the top. You're then going to use Magician's Soul's effect to send the field spell to the graveyard to draw the 1 card, which of course will be Diviner of the Herald. You're going to normal summon the Diviner of the Herald. Go in first. Now, we've already used up our normal summon. The only other card that we would possibly search would either be Apprentice Illusion or, of course, Timaeus. Now, Timaeus can't actually make anything without Dark Magician, so it wouldn't be the smartest of searches on that one. Illusion, again, is really good as a free extender and the ability to search out Dark Magician, but won't really lead me too much, apart from giving me a 2k beta on the board. So it does come down to entirely where you want to go. And the reason I say that is sometimes, rather than adding the Illusion of Chaos, it might be worth sending the Tis off of the back of Diviner to pop a card. So it really depends on what side of the fence you sit on in that particular scenario. If you feel that Diviner is going to be more used at popping a card for you, keep in mind you still have the free extender of Ecclesia, so it's not the end of the world. If you're trying to bait out, for example, a Imperm or a Blackout, now's the right time to do it. Obviously, you lose a Blackout, it would suck a little bit, but you also have the Seraphis in hand to protect you, so there's a bit of give and take. Use Diviner. We're going to send the Herald just so I can show you a few more plays. Now, obviously, there's no point in me getting a Magician's Rod because I've already conducted my normal, so the only reason that I would add that would be the follow-up play. So to me, the best card to probably be adding off of the back of Herald, after I move the camera with you, is of course I'm going to be going into Illusion of Chaos off of the Herald. I'm going to reveal the Illusion of Chaos, and I'm probably going to be going best for the Apprentice Illusion. Now the reason I'm doing this is because we're going for game, we're going for aggression, we want to get to the end play, and then you want to go from here. So you do need to put a card back to the top of the deck. To me, Ecclesia is not really going to add anything right now because it's going to ultimately lock me out of my extra deck. So I'm not going to get Dragoon, and you'd then be going for a Philidius over this, which to me isn't really worth it. So Ecclesia can go back to the top of the deck. You've still then got to use a bit of discard, so your best discard here would be Dark Magical Circle to send... wrong way around. There we go. That would then go to the graveyard to give you your Dark Magician off the Search of Apprentice. Again, if these get targeted by Imperm or anything like that, you've got the Soravus to protect you. Now, this is again very, very interesting as it does give you the ability to not go for Red Ice Fusion if you want to, and you can actually go for a Magical Ice Fusion instead off of the Verte, but it ultimately comes down to how you want to kind of play it from that point on. So what we're going to do here is you're then going to link these two together, as these are the two weakest that aren't really going to provide you with a lot, and you're going to go into Verte. Again, very, very boring plays, but you can kind of see why it's important. If you didn't want to go that way, another route, if your opponent is playing Darks, is you can actually climb up into Access Code. Because what you'd do here is you'd go Dark the Dark Charmer, revive one of your opponent's Dark Monsters, link those into Selene, and we should, well and truly, with that Dark Magical Circle in the graveyard, the one active on the field, and of course the Servant, will give us route to Access Code. So you still have actually follow-up play. So I'll tell you what, let's do it this way. Let's say you're only going to make this play if your opponent has Dark Monsters. So you use, let me just double, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, so 2 monsters including a Dark Monster, which you did with Magician Souls. So you make this. This will then revive a card from the graveyard, which will be one of your opponent's monsters. He counts himself as the spellcaster, so you can just go spell, rather than go Verte boring. Selene. Selene's effect can then bring back a spellcaster. It's a shame there isn't a Dark Magician in the graveyard, actually. So with a bit of foresight, you might have wanted to put Dark Magician in the graveyard instead of Dark Magician Girl, because at least by bringing him back, you'd trigger Circle. It wouldn't then mean you'd need to turn it into a effect monster by going into Link Spider, but it's not the end of the world. You then link these two together. Let's go Access Code, just to show you a little bit different. Access Code effect, gain 3k. Access Code effect to banish. I mean, if you did go Link Spider, you would get 3 banishes, so that's something interesting as well to keep in mind. Banish 2, non-target pop 2, and then you're pretty much going to be able to play from here. So you'd go attack 53, attack 2000, and even if this doesn't win you game, this isn't a great defensive board to sit on, so that's when you can then go, okay, I've cleared board off, I've done a lot of damage. If you've left a monster on the board, you can then still just go Verte, Verte's effect, pay the cost, do what you need to, Dragoon blow up the monsters for game. So it really then comes down to, what you've got. If you haven't led to game with this, you can still set the punishment past the turn. Now, obviously, what you'll have here is you've got Eternal Sword to bring Dark Magician back from the graveyard to the field to trigger this for a banish. You've got this that can send the Tis for a pop, and then that will give you the ability for a double pop. You've still got a negate off the back of this, and you still have targeting protection with Soravus as well. So again, you can kind of see what, the Access Code is a very nice route, an alternative route to mine, but keep in mind with that, your opponent would need to have been playing Dark Monsters. If they're not playing Dark Monsters, then you can't go that route. But the majority of main decks right now are playing some form of Dark Monsters. So after another decent shuffle, we'll do our final test hand. Now I hope I've done these in as much depth as possible. I know that it's a very long video, so by all means feel free to skip to each combo or each section as you see fit, but I would like to think that I've gone into enough detail to kind of explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and where you can end up. So our final test hand of 6 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is interesting. Okay, I can rock with this. Okay, there we go. Reset. So this is our hand. Obviously, the preparation of right play still remains. You're still going to activate that. You're still going to search out your Illusion of Chaos. You're still going to reveal the Illusion of Chaos, and you're going to add your Magician Souls. You're going to put the punishment back to the top of the deck. There we go. Punishment goes back to the top of the deck. If I activate the circle, I'm going to reveal punishment and 2 cards that I'm not really going to be able to do anything with. But I want to guarantee the rod, which I'll have to do after the fact. So if I want to get the banish and the draw, you're going to activate the circle, reveal the top 3. 1 will be punishment, and then 2 randoms. Obviously, salvation is a bonus, so we're going to add that. Even if it whiffs, it doesn't matter. because now what we're going to do is we're going to activate our Magician's Souls, sending it to the graveyard as cost, and then by doing so, well, not itself, but sending Dark Magician from the deck to the graveyard as cost, and then summoning out the Dark Magician. That will then trigger the circle to target and banish a card our opponent controls, which gives you one form of interruption. You're then going to activate the Soul Servant, and the Soul Servant is going to put your Magician's Rod to the top of the deck. You can go for Apprentice if you want to, but ultimately I don't think it's needed. You're then going to activate the Soul Servant to draw you into that Magician's Rod, to then add that back. You're then going to normal summon the Magician's Rod, and this is when you can search for pretty much any spell you want. Now, ideally, again, we're kind of in the same scenario where we've already gone through all of our spells that really list Dark Magician. So the next best thing to search after the Salvation, if we didn't reveal that, will be your Soul Servant. If you do play Secrets, that's where this comes into play, and this would actually be a very, very interesting route to get to Secrets. If you did play Master of Chaos, again, this is actually a very interesting route to make Master of Chaos. It's entirely up to you on the route of play you want to go and how you want to make it. So you can activate the Magician's Salvation. This is then, of course, going to allow you to give you an Eternal Soul for your follow-up play. Now, if you want to, you can send Soul Servant from the hand to keep the circle on the board, and that will then allow you to keep or maintain the Eternal Soul loop. Or you send the Field Spell, which is probably the best way of doing it, because then this gets this out of the way. So you send that, triggering the Tomias's effect to summon itself down. You can then activate the Tomias's effect. Now this is where it gets really, really important, is because if I want to get into double Dragoon, you need to make sure you don't use these two cards. You want to make sure you use the Saravis in the hand and the Dark Magician. This will then give you a Dragoon. Now, obviously, off the back of this, Dragoon is going to get 1 pop, not 2 pops, but that is still very, very important because you've sacrificed your protection of Saravis for your Verte and swapped it for a Dragoon. So if your opponent does do anything to interact with the Verte, whether it be Imperm Veiler or anything else, Dragoon can just go, you know what, negate, use the effect, buff it up by a K. You still also have the ability of unlocking both Magical Eyes Fusion plays and Red Eyes Fusion plays, so you open up the door for so much, it's mad. Verte's effect. Now, if I want to use Magical Eyes Fusion, I can and banish the Tomias Dragon and the Dark Magician. But of course, as we are going to go absolutely hardcore on this, we are sending Red Eyes Fusion, Red Eyes and Dark Magician. And we're going to go for a second Dragoon. Now, if you wanted to, you could go for a Dark Magician's. It's entirely up to you, but you're not going to get a draw or any particular bonus off of this. But you are going to get a very nice Dragoon play as well. Now, I believe the pops are soft per the Dragoon. So let me just double check this because I've never actually got into this scenario. You can only use each of one of yeah, so I'm pretty sure you would then get another 2 pops off of this because you made it with Red Eyes and Dark Magician, and then you got 2 Omni Negates sat in your hand. So there's no point in getting rid of these. This should lead you to game. If you've not got game off the back of this board, then something's wrong. Yes, okay, this is only going to be 6-5 in total, but I'll be amazed if your opponent's got no monsters on the board you can pop and burn with Dragoon, and you've got the ability to do that 3 times. Not to mention that if they try to activate anything, you've got no issue getting rid of these and make them 4Ks. They're then going to ultimately lead you to the game. If you don't get game off the back of this, you still have the ability of activating Eternal Soul during your opponent's turn to bring back a Dark Magician to non-target banish off of that, and you still maintain 2 Omni Negates. So, unless the cards that your opponent is going to activate are going to really destroy this board, you can make sure you hold back 1, if not both of those Omni Negates for during your opponent's turn. Anyway, I know this has been a very, very long video, but I hope each of these test hands has given you a learning experience, and I hope each of these has provided you with an understanding of the root of this deck and the particular playstyle of this deck. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, play 3 Red Eyes Fusion. I was like, yeah, absolutely fine, but this particular build that I've gone with does not need to rely on Red Eyes Fusion. It's got so many ways of getting through Verte and maintaining a lot of additional backup that I prefer this particular route for my particular playstyle. Again, it is entirely up to you on how you want to play the deck and the routes you want to take. And I'm always open to suggestions. Like you saw in one of our test hands, of course, Obelisk can be a big pain. But then as you saw in 2 of our other test hands, he can actually be very, very good as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe. And of course, happy dueling.